Poem Diendum, Morning After. Hangs the 7 angels of the 3rd angels, sleep the 7 words. God dog is the 1st angel who adores. Only after was there soul of the world, nafs, the anima, mundi, bread of the dogs admirer, than which we are, as his tongue hangs, dropping eternal events, the salivating dog. March 12th, 1961. For Robert Duncan, who understands what's going on, written because of him, March 17th, 1961. To go up and around Gravel Hill, the road goes southeast to Jeremiah's Millet, which is my other name. And precisely by where the house was Schutz's northeast passing, on the north side my personal orchard, where I wrote with a crabapple branch at my writing stand stump for Michael McClure, after Don Allen and Charles Peter and David Cummings and I ran into a pile of rotting fish. Fish! On Dogtown, viz. Rotting on the rills, and on Jeremiah Millet's field, on the name. As my life rotted, said Edward Dalberg, on my own field, assaulting my mother because she gave me the pork chops, Edward glaring out of his one good eye to register his notice of the preference. Spoiling me, la. That which I do here record for eternity no less. Lest it be lost, that my mother is a hard thing to get away from, and those who interfere, in the pure sense, Wordsworth, be with me in this line, whose preface is a walker for us all who would leave art and justice behind, leave Edward Dalberg strewn on his own wires. The next important spot is Benjamin Kinnicum's, from before 1717, then 5 very rocky acres, 1717, who married my other writer of these woods and paths, another Englishman, non-poet, John Jocelyn, via his brother's son's daughter Margaret. What a crazy early settlement this road into the woods did have, of which, as Jocelyn's, John first observed, after the strawberries all said early colonists, like Higginson's did note, he, see below ad from Jocelyn. BK is a hero of my work. As on the other, North Road, the one went into the woodlots. I shall celebrate Anne Robinson and her husband Samuel Davis, who settled Dogtown first of all, first before even Kinnicum. Samuel Davis was at the muddy place in the North Road, just where it goes sharply northeast towards its second rise, 6 1/4 miles, 1713. That the date of the origin of my second town. Kinnicum and Davis lie on the traverse line directly north and south of each other, and each road beyond their respective homes is a small area made the life of the place for the 50-60 years it was an overlook of the Gulf of Maine, and the province of Massachusetts way down to Le Havre. Between Le Havre and Lunenburg, Nova Scotia falls into tidal rivers and meadows on which we saw fish being cured in 1960 to Gloucester's Meeting House. Green and estuary of Anicum was when fishing was to Gloucester as fishing was to Europe then. Green fields to dry the silver wealth in steady sweetening sun. So small the areas are, the distance are 2,500 feet from Kinnicum's to William Smallman's, and 1,000 feet from Window Davis's, 1741, to James Marsh. In 1727, the North Road is characterized by Joshua Elwell's house between Davis House, and what the record says, the way leading by Joshua Elwell's to the Lotwoods, divided 1721. My problem is how to make you believe these persons, who live here then, and from these roads went off to fish or bought their goods 1.5 miles further north, at George Dennison's store, or where mariners, sailors, and a few farmers, though farming was pasturing and actually the older generation's use of Dogtown before these younger persons chose to live there. So far, some of them went on. John Adams was the name he took, actually born Alexander Smith on the back road, was with Christian mate when said crew busted Bligh, and said Smith of Dogstown's people now bred in new hybrids. But this is romantic stuff. I promise never to leave life writing on. As Pedagogus poetry was when Hector was not yet seen to be cut off from under Muthos, lovely lying Muthos. We breed again right out of our cunt-loving cock-sucking mouths, who breed now when species was replaced man and nature's gone away to furnaces men shoot bodies into. And our love is for ourselves alone. I walk you paths of life I'd share with you simply to make evident the world is an eternal event, and this epoch slowly the decline of fishes. Such a decline, Bayless. My son calls her his first teacher, suggested to her husband Gordon, have an aquarium to show what fish look like. Or it was already said it won't be long. With fish sticks, pictures will necessarily on the covers of TV dinners to let children know that mackerel is a different looking thing than herrings. O John Jesselyn, you. On the coast of Maine, shopkeepers there are none, being supplied by Massachusetts merchants with all things they stand in need of, keeping here and there fair magazines stored with English goods, but they set excessive prices on them. If they do not gain cent per cent by crying out, they are losers. The fishermen take yearly upon coasts many hundred quintals of cod, hake, pollock, which they split, salt, and dry at stages, making 3 voyages in a year.
O Jocelyn, you notice her, when they share their fish, which is at the end of every voyage, they separate the best from the worst. The first they call unmerchantable fish, being sound, full-grown fish, and well made up, which is known when it is clear like a lanthorn horn and without spots. The second sort they call refuse fish. That is such as salt-burnt, spotted, rotten, and carelessly ordered. These they put off to the Massachusetts merchants. The merchantable for thirsty, and 2 reals a quintal. The merchants sends the merchantable fish to Lisbon, Bilbao, Bordeaux, Marseille, Toulon, Rochelle, Rhone, and other cities of France, to the Canaries with clave-board and pipe staves, which is there, and at the Cherubs, a prime commodity. The refuse fish they put off at the Cherub Islands, Barbados, Jamaica, etc., who feed their negroes with it. To every shallop belong 4 fishermen, a master, or steersman, a midshipman, a foremastman, and a shoreman, who washes it out of the salt and dries it upon hurdles pitched upon stakes breast high, and tends their cookery. They often get in one voyage 8 or 9 pounds a man for their shares, but it doth some of them little good, for the merchant to increase his gains by putting off his commodity in the midst of their voyages, and at the end thereof, comes in with a walking tavern, a bark laden with the legitimate blood of the rich grape which they bring from Vial, Madeira, Canaries, with brandy, rum, the Barbados, strong water, and tobacco. Coming ashore, he gives them a taste or two, which so charms them that for no persuasions that their employers can use will they go out to sea, although fair and seasonable weather, for 2 or 3 days, nay, sometimes a whole week, till they are wearied with drinking, taking ashore 2 or 3 hogsheads of wine and rum to drink off when the merchant is gone. When the day of payment comes, they may justly complain of this costly sin of drunkenness, for their shares will do no more than pay the reckoning. If they save a quintal or 2 to buy shoes and stockings, shirts and waistcoats, with 'tis well, other wages they must enter into the merchant's books for such things as they stand in need of, becoming thereby the merchant's slaves, and when it riseth to a big sum, are constrained to mortgage their plantation if they have any. Further completion of plot. Lieutenant James Davis, 14 acres, 1717, and to share more, 1728-29, with his son-in-law James Stanwood, all on the east side of the lower road, defining therefore that stretch the first 10 acres, May 23rd, 1717, are of land and rocks between Joseph Ingerson's and Bryant's. Ingerson, Ingersoll, and Bryant, tied as Smallman and James Stanwood to be, to Falmouth, Portland's re-arising. James Damerett. The other later surviving one with Ingersoll on the east side altogether to Smallman's married Mary Bryant, and seems therefore, as James Stanwood, to have come on, as the fishermen and mariners did, to take over earlier pastures, uses of this higher land, up above Mill River, for besides James Davis, his brother Ebenezer, and James' own son Elias, also had acres, intermingled with John Days and Ezekiel Days. And as the Days, but as shipowners at the head of Mill River, the Davises were like Captain Andrew Robinson. Evidence how quickly fishing came up in the first quarter of the 18th century and flushed their children into Dogtown. Ebenezer died in 1732, leaving 3,047 pounds, and Elias, coming on so fast, the guess is he was to be the strongest man in Gloucester. Died at 40, and already, at said age, was worth 4,500 pounds. With a wharf at Canso, a fishing room, and 6 schooners, John, Mary, Molly, Flying Horse, and 3/4 of Greyhound and Elizabeth. More on Joseph Ingersoll to follow, and on the other side of the lower road, Deacon Joseph Winslow, who bought from his father-in-law, Day, in 1724. A prayer to the Lord, cast down like a good old Catholic, on the floor of San Vitale, next to Dante's tomb, in the midst of the vast of the construction. So I can get on with it, my great white Cadillac driving through Dogtown. March 28, 1961. From Cape Sable into the stream in Gloucester Harbor in 14 hours and 25 minutes. The Nanny C. Bolin, September 30th, 1893, 225 sea miles, or average of 15.5 knots per hour, under both topsails and each sail rove flat as a yacht's. Bolin 1. Bolin 2. Bolin, hove to, once loaded down with pickled herring and barrels, and with more lashed on deck. All having breakfast with their boots on, from the boards being sprung, Mr. Bolin did not believe in a vessel until her 3 inches of oak planking is loosened up. Imagine if Bolin had sailed the Lady of Good Voyage, or his own Bolin instead of Dr. Stimson's in the ocean race. He'd have rolled down a hill in a snowstorm to arrive at the bottom where his vessel was moored. Gee, what I called the upper road was the way leading by Joshua Elwell's to the woodlots, 1729. And Cherry, or the lower road, was, 1725, the way that leads from the town to Smallman's now dwelling house. B. Ellery, Sinvent Bridge, Air.